Hey everyone, this is Chris Crazy House here, and I wanted to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about the comments made by legendary director Martin Scorsese and what he had to say about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because apparently, Martin Scorsese has a big problem with these films produced by Marvel. And based on what he said, it sounds like he just outright hates these films because he went out. He's gone as far to say that, first of all, that they're not cinema. That was pretty much his first original comments. But then he's doubled down on them by saying that these films should not be even allowed in movie theaters. Like, he's saying that the movie theaters need to stop them from even being played. And now a fellow director, Francis Ford Coppola, has joined in by calling the Marvel films despicable. And when I hear these comments, both times when I've heard these comments, like, I usually just sort of shrug these things off because I really don't. It didn't bother me at first because I feel that everyone has a right to their opinion on something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you should be attacked for your opinion as long as you can give a credible and well thought out reason why you do like something, or a reason why you don't like something. And as someone who has both Scorsese and Coppola as two men who have directed legendary films, yeah, they will automatically get your attention when they start to critique other films. But when you actually get to the nitty gritty of what they're saying, and also to the point where they admit that they've never actually seen any of these films, that's when you have to really question what it's all about. And really, the real underlying issue is more of a money and distribution thing that they have a problem with the Marvel films. It's really not so much. I mean, the problem with it is they're not being specific about the issue they might have, and it might not even be with the Marvel films themselves. If you really think about who's behind it, the way Disney does distribution deals and marketing and everything, that might be more of their issue than the actual Marvel films. But they're deciding to go ahead and just take it out on the Marvel films themselves, and I think that's the wrong way for them to go. I do not agree with Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola in their description of the Marvel films and saying that they're not cinema. And I definitely don't agree with the fact that they're despicable or that they should not be shown in theaters. By doing that, by even saying things like that, they're taking it way too far. To the point where, like, when they made those comments, I was wondering, had they, like, what are they talking about? Like, it almost sounds like they're talking about maybe they saw. Like, I was laughing to myself thinking, well, did Scorsese accidentally see the porn version of the Avengers, or the porn version of these Marvel Universe films? Because that's what it sounded like he was describing. It didn't sound like he was actually talking about the actual Marvel films. And even what Coppola was saying, I was like they're saying this despicable. I was like, well, like, what are you talking about? And I think the basic problem they do have on a realistic level is that the way Disney had the power that Disney has, they can kind of push these things in there. But also, you got to think about the other side of the business as far as these theaters go. The theater business has been steadily losing money over the years based on how films are done and distributed, especially through digital media. There are not a lot of people who want to pack in the theaters and pay all that money for snacks and the movie itself without seeing some sort of spectacle or getting their money's worth. It also has to do with the international market, where these films now make more money internationally, and it's not just a domestic market anymore. And if a film this is something that I don't agree with the movie and theater industry. If something doesn't make a whole bunch of money the first weekend, it's considered a flop. Like movies are not allowed to grow organically like they used to. They're all released all at once in theaters and for a weekend. If it doesn't make the money, then it's considered a flop. Where I think that's a really bad way to go, because a lot of the great films that we know and love were able to grow organically because they were going from place to place. And I think now the way it's structured, there are a lot of great films that go under the radar or just pass by us that we don't pay attention to because we listen to some news report that says, well, the movie didn't do well. That doesn't mean that the movie's bad. It just means that it didn't do well because it didn't make a bazillion dollars that weekend. So I can understand criticizing the way the industry has changed and the way things are done, but don't lump that all on Marvel films. Like because they're the big boys on the block, it's real easy at this point to take shots at them without considering the movie industry as a whole and what a lot of these studios and digital content and media, what that part of it, considering what the theater industry has been doing. You can't just blame this all on Marvel films. First of all, for all the complaining that I see people both in the industry and also on the internet, they always complain that, oh, there's too many Marvel films that are oversaturating the market. They really are not. When you actually count the movies that they put out on a year-to-year basis, it's not as much as you might think. Okay, they usually do 2 to 3 movies a year, if that. They didn't do as many last year because of Avengers Endgame was so long, and I think they had that, and was it the Captain Marvel movie? So really not a lot. So consider that there's not that many Marvel films even put out there, but also consider the fact that there's so many other films that you can go out there and see. You have options. It's not like Marvel is taking over movie theaters and you don't have options. Every time I go to the movie theater, I see all types of films there that you can go see still. I see little small art house films that you can still see in major theaters. You just got to go out there and look for it if you really want to find it or if you really want to see it. That's what trailers are for. That's what you go, look up. If you really are a fan of a certain director or a certain person or a certain actor, you'll go see the movies that they're in. Don't blame Marvel for whatever your shortcomings might be. Because I know Scorsese had an issue with the distribution deal that he got for The Irishman, that he couldn't get it in theaters the way he wanted. But in my opinion, I think he got a better deal, the fact that it's going to be on Netflix. So I think that's the way of the future. I think you should be more concerned about that. Now, yeah, I understand that you want to have things done the old way or the way you remember it. You want to have things in theaters, and that's fine. And he still got a theater distribution deal through one of the major chains. So it's almost kind of like he's getting the best of both worlds at the same time. So it's like, to me, I don't think that's the way things are done now. I think he should be more appreciative of that. And the new film, The Irishman, looks like a good film. It was very interesting. Now, I don't want to make it seem like I hate Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola. I love their movies. And it's kind of a shame that they've done this because in their time when they were young coming up, there are people who said the same thing about their films, that their films weren't real cinema or that their films were either too edgy or they're promoting certain things that you shouldn't see. And or like one of the biggest criticisms I remember of both of them was that they keep painting criminal organizations like the mafia in a fun light. And you can make that argument. They do make the mafia look fun, or they make it look more honorable than it actually is. And it's not, I mean, these are still criminal organizations, okay? You got to be careful what you're doing, how they portray certain things. That's why I always wonder, people always make comments about music and everything like that being violent, but some of the films that they've made are worse than that. I mean, Scorsese's Taxi Driver has a lot of really disgusting things in there that I'm almost surprised that it's actually held in such high regard based on the content that's in that film. A great film. I got a copy of it myself. I got the Criterion edition myself, but I can understand people making criticism of it. But that's what I mean. Is like they were criticized in their day, but I don't think anyone was ever trying to take their films out of the cinema. Let people enjoy their comic book movies. There's no reason for you to be at this point, especially with the heights that you've reached in your careers, to try to tear down what Marvel is doing. What I think Marvel is doing is a great thing. I'm glad, as someone who's a comic book fan, as someone who grew up as a comic book fan, I'm so glad that I'm alive to see this. I'm alive to see the comic books that I used to sit and read every day. I can actually see that on the big screen, and not only see them on the big screen, but I can actually see an entire universe connected together just the way the comic books were when I was growing up. It's a very fun time for movies and entertainment, I feel, where you have uh, multi layers of content that can be put on the screen nowadays. And with the technology, there's really no limit to what you can accomplish. I'm excited by it, and I think it's a great thing. Definitely don't think it's something we should be trying to clamp down on and trying to take down or destroy. And that's the thing I worry about with some of the comments by people like Scorsese and Coppola. And I also worry about people's reaction to it with people like that, like Jon Favreau or whoever, allowing them to saying just because they've created some great movies that it's okay for them to criticize like that. It's okay for you to criticize, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually right in what they're saying. Criticism and saying that something is despicable or doesn't needs to be put in theaters or should be blocked from theaters is that's two completely different things right there. One is an opinion, and the other is you're going way overboard. That they're literally going back to like they're putting themselves in the category of people who were actually against comic books back during the 50s who tried to get comic books shut down. When the government actually went at comic books and said that they're a bad influence on the youth. They're taking themselves into the same degree as people who have tried to shut down horror movies or who have tried to shut down Hollywood during the Red Scare and the McCarthy hearings about communism. They're putting themselves in the same vein as people who said that either blues, rock and roll, or hip hop wasn't music. They're putting themselves in the same category as people saying that certain books should be banned from the bookshelf, like fantasy books aren't real literature. Horror and suspense stories aren't real literature. Science fiction is not real literature. I get tired of that. I hate that when people do stuff like that because it's very closed minded. It's very dismissive of the art form and the work that people put into these things. They're not just these Marvel films aren't something that they just throw up and come up with off the cuff. There are people, top directors, top actors, top people working in effects and working as crews. It's very disrespectful to them to say that what they do is not cinema when they work so hard. I mean, and if they want to talk about that, Coppola and Scorsese know that there's always been spectacle cinema like that. It's a different genre, yes, but that doesn't mean that it's any less cinema. Going back to the original days of Hollywood, when people were making movies like King Kong, the black and white King Kong, or the Universal horror movies like Frankenstein and Dracula. Going up even further to one of Coppola's best friends, George Lucas, making Star Wars. Does he consider that despicable too? There would be no Marvel movies had it not been for the Star Wars pretty much started that idea of having this large film franchise with multiple films being connected together in a whole entire universe and displayed over multi forms of content. So does Coppola think Star Wars is despicable too? And they're built off of the same principle. There would be no Marvel films without what we had with the Star Wars franchise. And like I said, I'm not mad at that. I'm happy about being able to see things like that in theaters. I'm still, as an adult, I'm still blown away by the content that I get to see in theaters. I was just right there in the front row cheering just as much as the little kids were when I was watching, the Avengers fight Thanos. I thought that was, when I read the Infinity Gauntlet as a kid in middle school, I never thought I would be able to see something like that on the big screen. And to say that that's not cinema because I don't know what their real justification is, because people don't enjoy it. It definitely fits the real definition of what cinema is. So to say that it's not and then want to try to get it out of theaters, I just think that's the wrong way to go. You folks let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. I would very much appreciate hearing your opinions on the subject. Like I said, I don't want to tear down and make it seem like, oh, I hate Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola, or I don't like their films anymore, or whatever. That's never going to happen. Gangs in New York is one of my favorite films of all time. The Godfather is one of my favorite films of all time. Same thing with Apocalypse Now. I would never degrade them and say, oh, I don't like their films anymore or whatever like that. But they're absolutely 100% wrong to say that something is not cinema, and also to say that these things are despicable and should not be put in theaters. Let people enjoy themselves, and it's not like there's not options out there. There's plenty of options and different types of films that people can enjoy. Let people enjoy it, and don't be sitting on your high chair trying to tear something down. Especially when people did try to do the same thing to you. You should know better. As some people who have been in the industry for this long and who have dealt with that type of criticism, you should know better than to do that to someone else right now. And if you have a problem with the way Disney or whoever is distributing films, deal with that. Don't tear down the films themselves. Chris Miller, Chris Crazy House, signing out. Peace.